Christine Clifford is now with us. She is the founder and president of the Cancer Club, and she's the author of a couple of books, including Not Now, I'm Having a No Hair Day, and Our Family Has Cancer Too. And Christine, welcome back to WHO.
Thank you, Stephen. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years ago when I had you actually here live in the studio.
Yeah, I remember it well.
And you now travel the country giving speeches and sharing your story about surviving cancer and also learning to laugh about it.
That's correct.
And you have a little theme now. I think you say, don't forget to laugh. And I think some people would have a hard time understanding how a person who's gone through cancer could take as her theme, don't forget to laugh. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, there certainly is nothing humorous about getting a diagnosis of cancer, and I actually was exposed to it at a very early age. My mother was diagnosed at the age of 38.
And she died very young, didn't she?
She did. She died at the age of 42. So I was 40 when I received my diagnosis, and of course, my mother being my role model, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to, die from this, and I was extremely depressed. But I found very early in the treatment process, Stephen, that I needed people around me. I didn't want to go through this experience alone. And traditionally, what seems to happen when a friend or family member hears that a loved one is suffering from really any type of disease, they don't know what to say, and they don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right, so they don't say anything.
So they don't say anything,
right.
And they tend to pull back and draw away, which makes the person going through the experience feel even more isolated. Right. So I found humor to be a great connector of people.
But certainly a loved one has to be very careful in offering any kind of humor about that kind of situation.
Well, I do often encourage the patients to let their friends and family members know when it's a good time for them, when they're ready to have humor come back into their lives. But as I was saying, humor is a great connector of people, and if you can use humor to put other people at ease, then they feel like, oh my gosh, this person has a great attitude, and I really want to support them and be around them and help them.
Okay, so you're saying the cancer victim needs to initiate the humor.
Well, I think so, and I think
for instance, did you do wild things with your wig? I mean, your hair fell out, correct? And
all my hair fell out.
Right. So did you do goofy things with that? I mean, is that the type of humor you're talking about?
Well, I did do goofy things with my wig. I had young boys. We put the wig on the dog, and the dog was running around, and the boys tried on the wig, and the wig would blow off in the middle of playing around a golf or something. So there was a lot of humor associated with the hair loss. But I think that it's such a long process getting through treatment for cancer. It's a minimum of 6 months and oftentimes years for people. And so if you don't start searching for signs of humor in your predicament, you're really going to have a long haul there.
Now, you founded the Cancer Club. What is that?
Well, the Cancer Club is a company that markets humorous and helpful products for people with cancer.
Many of your products, though, do involve, like, the family. You get the family involved. Kids. Don't kids have a lot of questions, especially when, let's say, a 40-something-year-old mom suddenly is diagnosed with breast cancer?
Well, they have all kinds of questions, and actually some of their questions, ended up being cartoons in my book. I had 2 boys who were 10 and 8 at the time of my diagnosis, and they would ask me questions like, Mom, is cancer contagious? Mom, is this breast cancer thing hereditary? Things like that. But one of the reasons that I wrote my children's book, Our Family Has Cancer Too, is I could not find anything out there that I felt took it down to a child's level and alleviated the fear. And so my book is a book of cartoons. All my work is based around my cartoons. And it explains cancer, but in a way that's not so frightening and perhaps even a little bit humorous, because I don't think children ever fully understand the seriousness of the disease, but personally for myself, I didn't want them to understand the seriousness of the disease. I had understood that as a child, and I watched my mom every day for 4 years thinking, this is the day she's going to die, this is the day she's going to die, and I didn't want to put my kids in that situation. I decided that regardless of how long I have left on this earth, that I wanted to celebrate every day of life with them and not have them worried about me. I wanted them to live their own normal, regular life.
Christine Clifford, president of the Cancer Club and author of Not Now, I'm Having a No Hair Day. That's humor and healing for people with cancer. She's also written a book called Our Family Has Cancer Too. That's for kids. She's got cartoons in it. Here's what I'm looking at. The mother is explaining to her kids that Mommy may lose her hair now. And the son says, wow, just like Captain Picard on Star Trek.
You know, Stephen, that was the very first time I laughed, was the night we sat down to tell my children I had cancer. And I had known for 8 days, and I'd been crying and, you know, going through all the emotions, you know, anger, fear, denial, grief. And we sat our kids down to tell them, and my son said, cool, now you'll look like Captain Picard on Star Trek.
Oh, he really said that?
Oh, you know, all the cartoons in both of my books are true experiences.
Isn't that something?
So it just goes to show you there is some humor in the dark sides of life.
Christine, I want to make sure we find out what you're going to be in town for, and what will you be talking about?
Well, I'm talking, the subject is Me, Myself, and I, Market Yourself Like Crazy. And it's really a terrific topic not only for speakers and authors, but entrepreneurs, independent business owners, even employees of companies that are trying to find better ways to promote their product. As we all know, when we create something, the biggest challenge that we have is creating awareness of that product so that people know it exists. And so I'll be talking about, you know, how do you define your niche in your market? What kind of products do you need to create tools that can sell your product? How do you penetrate the market? How do you establish credibility in your field? Can you use the media to gain notoriety and grow your business?
I can tell you from my standpoint, everybody wants to use the media, but very few people know how to use it correctly or get to the right people to use it.
That's exactly right. And I think, you know, this interview is a great example. You know, my first book was written in 1996, and, you know, 4 or 5 years later here, you know, it's still a topic of interest. People are still, you know about it and want to have me on the air.
Right.
So, you know, there is a definite talent to doing that, and that's what I'll be talking about.
Christine, how now has your family dealt with it after you've kind of become famous? I mean, here, isn't this, you've taken something that was a tragedy and somehow turned it into something positive. How has the family dealt with that?
Well, I think the most positive thing that's come of it is that my illness never defined my family. I have a dear friend here in the Minneapolis area where I live who's going through some trauma with her health, and one of her daughters said to her the other day, you know, Mom, all anyone ever asks me about is how are you? They never ask me how am I?
Yeah.
And, you know, you really have to be careful about that you let the rest of your family members, you know, have a normal life. But I think, you know, they're all, most of all, just thrilled that I am still here. You know, I just recently, Stephen, celebrated my 5-year anniversary of being a cancer survivor.
So you are older now than your mother was when she died.
I am.
And do you fear that? Do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think once you've had cancer, you don't ever stop thinking that it could come back. I certainly, you know, try to look on the positive side of life on a daily basis, but especially being in the industry I am in, which is working with cancer patients on a daily basis.
That's why you say don't forget to laugh.
That's right.
That's what's important.
That's right.
Well, Christine, thanks so much for being with us on WHO. To start our broadcast this morning, Reverend Rick Arkfeld, who's a Catholic priest from Coleridge, Nebraska, he has been in town this weekend speaking on the subject of death and dying. He was at Holy Trinity Church and the Bishop Drum and St. Teresa Church in Des Moines. And Father Arkfeld, you have quite an unusual story. You're a happy man. I understand you use a lot of humor in your presentation, and yet if we listen to your story, some of us may see it as being a very sad, serious story, right?
Well, I don't know if that's true. I was 5 years old, and so I feel pretty secure right now. The cancer's in remission. But the talk itself mixes a lot of humor with facts and with fiction too, as an explanation to help people get over fear, and to let them know, that you can live life and have a good time even in face of death, and yet at the same time realize that every one of us are going to die, and we shouldn't be afraid.
Now you are supposed to be dead right now.
I'm supposed to be dead. In fact, 5 years ago yesterday, I had the original surgery that removed part of the lung, 2 lobes of the lung, and the doctor told me at the end that it was so massive and it was out of the lung already, wrapped around the esophagus and the nodes and the glands behind. It was in the bloodstream and went to the femur of my right leg, to my breastplate, and to one of the right ribs. And so he said it did about 6 months with the mother cell the way it was. He thought about 6 months that I would be gone. And I didn't die, but about 10 months later, another form of cancer came and attached itself to the other lung on the other side, totally destroyed the bottom lobe and part of the top. It's kind of a foam-like cancer. So I function with a small lobe on my right and a part of the lobe on the left, and they gave me 2 months at that time to live, and it's been the longest 2 months I've ever put in.
Well, when you were told that you weren't going to have much time to live, what was the initial reaction, and what did you do to kind of get your house in order?
Well, first of all, the initial reaction, I had moved from a parish that I'd been in for a lot of years, and just 6 months before that, and I dearly loved those people, and I think I went through a death process when I moved. All of the things that you're supposed to go through when you're here, you're going to die, I went through 6 months before when I left a parish of people that I loved. And when they told me I was going to die and I wasn't upset and I didn't go through that, I couldn't understand why, until sometimes later I figured out I'd already been through it. So I didn't go through the normal thing of rejection and bargaining with God and things like that. But some of the things that I did experience, for instance, was trying to imagine what it would be like to be dead and to be in heaven. And one thing that I would make me cry, I like music. If I'd hear a song that I really liked, I'd try to imagine what's that going to sound like in heaven. So I went through, I didn't do things normal even there. But in the process of going through it, I did put some things together and look forward to die. Of course, you have to get your house in order. But one of the things, some people asked me to put down my thoughts about facing death. And that's where the talk came from. And that helped a lot to put it into outline form and then to speak on it.
And obviously there are many people who are in this same situation, right?
Oh, there are lots. And, I think practically every family is touched by somebody that's dying of cancer or has cancer or lives in the fear of cancer in the past recurring.
So what are some of the things you did to get your house in order? Did you go on a wild trip?
Oh, I didn't do that at all. No, not at all.
You blew all your money, and you only had 2 months left. So,
with a shortage of air. No, they announced at church, that I would never be able to have mass again. I really couldn't breathe. If I could get to the front door to answer it, I couldn't talk when I got there. So I was pretty subdued that way. But I was really excited because when the quality of your life starts changing, to me it doesn't make any difference. I'm kind of ready to go. I didn't care really how long I lived, but I did care that the quality of my life was so that I could enjoy things and do things. And when it started changing, I couldn't do that way. There was no problem at all for me to look forward to the end of 2 months. In fact, that's when I planned my funeral, and I had a good time. The readings and the music and the pallbearers and the prayer card and everything that I had ready. Even got my tombstone up. And that was very special because there's something I wanted on there that I knew they wouldn't put if I wasn't there. They'd think I was kidding. So I got all these things done, and then I got better.
So the tombstone is still waiting,
The tombstone is still waiting. I'm going to be buried in the cemetery of the home town where I was born and raised. I always told people I want to go back to the dirt from which I was made. In fact, a relative of ours donated the cemetery, so it really is home to me in the end.
Now, you had a good attitude, but a lot of people who go through this go the opposite way.
That's right. But it's getting better. There's so many people facing cancer and so many that have gone through it already, and you kind of learn from one another. And I really do believe there's a lot less fear of death today than there was years ago, because families are just plagued by these long process deaths. It isn't so much the quick there's always somebody that's really sick. And I get to meet a lot of people that are dying, and they're some of the most beautiful people in the world. They really are. I believe that.
So what are your suggestions for people who are going through this?
Laugh. See, I really believe we have the ability to make ourselves sick or to promote death out of fear and stress and anxiety. I think, people get ulcers and people get sick different points, different ways. When they are living in fear, and when somebody is told they have cancer or any other fatal disease, terminal disease, I really believe that they can do one of two things. They can be in so much fear that their own body can't heal or take over, and the treatments or the medicine they're taking can't work. But if they were to laugh, both of those things would work a lot better. And the doctor has assured me that one of the reasons I'm alive today is because I laughed. But see, within a few weeks after I got home from a surgery, I asked from the pulpit, for the people, if you know anything funny about death or cancer, let me know. I'll give you an example of one. There was a young man in the parish about 6 months after I had surgery, came up to me and he said, "Father, I hate to tell you this, but we're kind of hoping, the people in the parish were kind of hoping that we'd have our new priest by now."
They were still stuck with you, right?
That's right. They still got me.
We've got Reverend Rick Arkfeld here from Coleridge, Nebraska. You can call us now at WHO Radio. Laura, you're on the line from Stewart. You have had cancer as well, is that right?
Yes, I had a mastectomy in January last year, and I always had this horrible fear of cancer till I found out I had it. I was told that I had it for 8 years, that it was through the lymph nodes. When they operated, they found out I didn't have it in the lymph nodes. So I needed no chemotherapy or anything else, and I've always laughed about it. I don't fear it anymore. I've got a healthy respect for it, but no fear. And I agree with Father that laughter and horsing around about it is the best way to get over it.
But Laura, how do you do that? I mean, for those of us from the outside who aren't experiencing this, we see it as being a very dangerous, dark time. How do you deal with that?
I made up my mind it wasn't going to kill me. I don't know why. Having that deadly fear, and yet I felt I would be all right. But I had to laugh. That's the only way you can face, in my estimation, that you can face something like that. When you have a dread of something and you face it, I think at that time you make up your mind how you're going to carry it through.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to tell him that he is on the right track.
Okay, great. Thanks for calling, Laura.
Yeah.
You're tuned to WHO Radio and Father Arkfeld. How much does attitude have to do with it? It must be most of it,
right?
A
lot of it, and that's the one thing I do. When I talk to somebody that's dying, I ask them the first thing, do you laugh? And their attitude makes a lot of difference. The attitude of the people around them, are they able to talk to you about the cancer, about death, and is it something that you can freely discuss, or is it a hidden issue and something to fear?
Some of us are uncomfortable with that. If we have a friend or relative who is dealing with terminal cancer,
and there are funny things, and just for instance, I deal with a lot of people whose relatives die, their close friends or something, and during the time of between the death and the funeral, there's a time in there that they're ready to laugh, they're ready to let go. We can only be morbid or sad or quiet so long. And then there's the body needs this.
Do you joke about the cancer?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but what is funny? Tell me something that you could do that would be funny about.
Well, for instance, when I was taking treatments, I didn't want to lose my hair. I'm bald-headed. I'm balded if you can't see me. But I didn't want to lose my hair because it would look funny in the casket.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, I was afraid they wouldn't have, if I put a wig on the casket, nobody would recognize me because I'm bald. And I wasn't sure that they made a wig with a bald spot in it. And so I used to tell people that. And then these are the things that are funny.
Okay. Mike's on the line from Des Moines. And Mike, you have a relative that's dying, is that right?
Yeah, I've got a mother-in-law. I agree with you on the humor. I know when my father passed away, I was very lucky. He was only sick for a month. And my mother-in-law right now has had cancer for 10 years. And a couple of it's kind of funny. She jokes around a little bit, but she's having some problems, I think, with it. And my wife has had a lot of problems with it. And I know that you were asking about some humorous anecdotes, and she calls herself part of the sinus family because her cancer's up in her sinus, and she's always blowing her nose, and she never knows the difference between having a cold or not. And it's kind of cute from that standpoint. But how can I help my wife, who is very close to her mother, who is an RN, who knows the problems that can arise? Her biggest fear is the crippling effects that this can have. It's up in her sinuses. She's having problems with her hearing. She's having problems with her sight. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think you deal with it one day at a time, and I think you don't look ahead and plan, what it's going to be like or how awful it's going to be. But at the same time, you realize that whatever your mother-in-law has to go through, whatever the pain is, why it really is a blessing, because when we go through this, we are preparing ourselves to enter the kingdom. And in this preparation, we're making ready, to step from this world into the next and right on to God. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I look at it, and I think it's a good outlook.
Mm-hmm. One other question. How do you deal, I've got some friends that are not Christian. Mm-hmm. Do you, in your tape series or tonight, will you be covering that, how to approach somebody that is dying, that is not Christian?
I really don't. And I just take for granted that in face of death, everybody's a little bit Christian, or everybody at least knows about God or wants to go to God. And if they don't, why, I just feel, they will someday understand that they don't want to quit living.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for calling.
Okay,
Mike.
Thanks a lot.
And that is a good question, because you have talked about the fact that you were ready for heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about the people who either don't believe in heaven or don't really know what they believe?
Well, I think perhaps, from my standpoint, they've got a big surprise. And if this side of it, though, I think there's a yearning. I think God put within us this wanting to live forever. And when the closer we get to death, the more apparent it becomes. And I can't speak for them, but I really do believe that they will come to that.
Now, there are people, though, who go through the anger at God.
Oh, yeah.
And if anything, maybe they get farther away from God because of the dying process, right?
They could, except anger is okay. God's big and He can take it. And even anger draws us closer to Him, because in that anger we have to learn and grow and decide something.
We have Father Rick Arkfeld. And Tricia, you're on the line. Did you have some books that may help?
Yes, I had read 2 books by Bernie Siegel that really bear out what Father is talking about, just with the physiological response, his response to cancer. I'm a nurse, and that was real amazing to me, that he's saying that laughter and a positive attitude, actually your body responds to that physiologically, and you will see that what you release in your bloodstream fights the cancer. And I thought that might be interesting for some of the other people listening. And the other comment that I had that I would like Father to speak to is, as a healthcare worker, I've sometimes felt my hands tied in dealing with people who are newly diagnosed. And I've worked sometimes with physicians who have dealt with it real well, and sometimes physicians who have not. And my question to Father is if he has any advice for people who he dealt with, or healthcare professionals, in how they were helpful to him, or maybe how they were not in dealing with his diagnosis. Okay, and I'll hang up.
Good question. Thank you for calling.
Are you speaking of how to deal with the people that take care of the people, or the people who are sick?
I think she's talking about actually recommendations to healthcare workers.
Healthcare workers. Okay.
What were some of your experiences with those healthcare people?
I think the more normal you can be, the better off everybody is. If you walk in with the attitude that you've got to be careful, I can't say this or that, or I can't talk about certain things, I think it becomes a real difficult job as a healthcare worker. But if you walk in knowing that, these still are people, and they still have fears, and they would like to alleviate some of those fears, and as a healthcare worker, you walk in, how you feeling today? Is there anything that's bothering you? Do you have any fears? And you just ask them outright and give them the opportunity to express what's in their mind. And it really does work, because we tiptoe around them and we don't mention certain things, and we protect them, and they might be inside. I really hate it when families do this. They don't tell or want to tell anybody that they're dying, but they should know that, and they should be aware that we have just a little while to get everything in order.
So instead of being afraid to converse about it, bring it up.
Up front, absolutely. Be up front about it, and give them the opportunity to talk on the level that they want to talk, to the degree that they want to discuss it.
But how do you do it? For instance, if somebody's going through cancer treatments and their hair is falling out and they're obviously looking ill.
Does it bother you to have your hair fall out? But tell me, is there an incident that you're embarrassed about or something?
So you're saying bring that up to them?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let them talk about it.
Because most of us are hesitant about that. We don't.
I wouldn't be at all because, if there's something bothering you, you want to talk to somebody about it. And maybe you can't do this or that. I don't know that person. But what an opportunity if somebody walks in and says, does it bother you to lose your hair?
Yeah.
Tell me. I'd like to know. And it's a lot, whether you're the way you ask. It really is, whether you're interested or if it's just a matter of conversation.
Sue calling from Ames. You had a question for Father Arkfeld?
Yeah, Father, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly healthy, but I do have a fear of dying. Like, for instance, getting on a plane. I find I'm so fearful of the plane crashing that I can't even enjoy myself en route. So do you have any suggestions about how to give that up?
I feel sorry for people that can't do certain things because of fear. But I know what fears are. I'm afraid of high places, and I stay away from them. Some people are really afraid of planes, but not because of death. It's just the experience that you can be afraid of.
Being out of control.
But if you let the subject of death or the finality of death control your life, there's so many things that you won't do. But if you just keep in the back of your mind, God is in charge of that. And go ahead and do what you want to do. Don't be reckless.
But what if you aren't even sure that God's even there,
Oh, well, then it's a different thing. And I think that, I don't know how to address that because if you're not sure God isn't there, there's a lot of things to be afraid of. Afterlife or, I don't know, your health tomorrow or the health of your friends. You kind of work together, in my estimation. You have to be a team. And I really don't know. For instance, if somebody faces death or a family tragedy and they don't have God, I often wonder how they handle it, how they accept it, how do they get through that. And I don't know because I can't speak for somebody. I've never been there. I always had that as a background, that God is there.
Well, I guess, I had faith a year ago, and I guess I've just kind of gone through a transition period of questioning, doubt, that.
Did something specifically happen to cause you to doubt?
My aunt had a heart attack, and it just kind of, stirred up those questions.
What do you think that God had to do with the heart attack? Do you think that he caused it?
No,
Okay.
I think it just...
We're fallen people, and these things happen to us. But what God does is rush through and give us help to live through that heart attack, to accept it, or to die and be with him.
So you think that he gives us the strength to carry on?
Oh, he does. I do this. I meet people all the time that are dying, and he fills them with acceptance. We couldn't do that ourselves. Some of the happiest people I know in the world are people that are very, very sick and dying, and they're accepting, and they teach beautiful lessons.
So you think if I just focus on the fact that when the time comes, God will give me the strength to get through it?
He does. It's called grace. Bushel basket's full of it to help.
Okay.
And I witness and recognize this and see it over and over again.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for calling.
Bye.
She said something about being out of control. Some of us want to keep control.
Lots of us want to keep control.
We don't want God to have control.
We want to tell God, but that's what death does, or facing death.
Yeah.
We let go, and it's called acceptance, and this is one of the most beautiful things about people that are dying. If you happen to be a family member or a hospice worker, you understand what I mean.
Reverend Rick Arkfeld on WHO.